episode 147 of the podcast. This week we'll talk about pain, working with dogs that may be sore or experiencing pain. And is pain a free pass to hurt people? You'll find out my opinion on that this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. When we talk about pain, we also want to, of course, remember that we want to keep these dogs comfortable. We want to avoid pain. That's always going to be the place for us to start as groomers. Veterinary, different, but as groomers, we're always trying to avoid pain. But the tricky part is that sometimes something painful happens or is happening in a grooming setting. So I broke that down into 3 categories, just to make things easier. So that first category is accidents, because accidents happen. Dogs can hurt themselves or accidentally be hurt by us and our equipment because we use sharp tools. Remember, that's part of our safety policy, talking to owners about sharp tools. And at some point, most of us as groomers will have an accident of some sort. So what happens after an accident? Well, first of all, now we have a dog who is injured, and now we need to provide first aid. We can't just go, oh, he's injured, let him go home, right? We still need to be able to handle this dog, and we need to be able to have them trust us for that. So we have to be able to handle a dog who is experiencing pain. Now, a second category, another time when dogs may experience pain, is when we as groomers discover a problem. So there are some examples for this. Could be something that just happens to be sore. Maybe that's a sore underneath a mat, or a face that's sore, and then we look at the teeth and realize, wow, maybe these owners didn't even know about that. A lot of dogs don't show signs of pain unless we are actually manipulating that area. So owners sometimes haven't noticed any signs of pain in their dog. They can be very, very subtle. So if we start noticing something like, hey, he's a little head shy today, and he usually isn't. Is it the vibration of that clipper near his mouth? Let's take a look at his mouth. Oh my God. Sometimes groomers are discovering something that this dog may be finding painful. I can think of a bunch of examples for that, but I think we all know that sometimes dogs are just a little bit more sensitive with us when we're grooming. And I will give you an example of this one. I had a dog I was grooming, and I'm like, she's being really sensitive about her right back leg. Every time I'm lifting or trying to balance on her right back leg, when I lift her left back leg up, I'm like, something's going on. And her owner's like, oh, no. I would know if my dog's in pain. I'm like, something's happening. She's being really sensitive about this area. I am not going to diagnose pain. I am not a veterinarian. But I'm saying she seems really sensitive. She's not usually like this from one foot to the other. And then when I was picking out the mat in between her toes, we also found a piece of acorn. So this acorn had, you know how acorns crack and there's sharp pieces? Yeah, so she had a sharp piece of acorn stuck between the pads of her feet. And her owner was so sad. She's like, oh my God, I really didn't even know. So, sometimes they aren't showing signs. So as groomers, we see a dog and we're going over them the million ways that we go over them. And we find problems. Sometimes that's in the tub, sometimes that's with our clipper work, sometimes that's with a brush. We're going to find things that are sore. So that's another example of when we work with dogs who might be experiencing pain. And now there's a third category that I'm putting in kind of separate as its own category, and that's the dogs with chronic health problems, because not all of these dogs are well built. Some of those little dogs with their twisted legs, some of these dogs that are older, that have sore hips, some of these dogs with itchy, sore skin. I think sometimes we as groomers forget how itchy that skin can be. That's a different type of pain. Itching is a different type of pain. That's still a dog who is really uncomfortable. So there are just so many things that could be constant or frequently recurring problems for dogs that we also deal with, because grooming is something that is on a regular schedule for a dog's entire lifetime. They are always going to have some sort of grooming needs. Maybe it's just a smooth-coated dog who needs the occasional bath, and most of their work is just nail trimming and keeping their nails nice and healthy. But all of them have some grooming needs. We will see dogs who are experiencing some level of pain. Now, when we talk about some of these examples, I want to repeat this again for the non-groomers out there, that we as groomers have to be able to work with dogs if they're sore. We have to be able to work with them if they have health issues, and we have to be able to work with them if they become injured. And I think that sometimes we forget that. We start thinking, well, if it's painful, that's a free pass to hurt people. And I do not feel like it is. At some point in a dog's life, they will experience pain and they will need help from a human. Think about that. These are house pets. They will experience pain at some point in their life and they will need help from a human. And that's not just the vet. That could be the groomer. Often it's a groomer. It could be a pet sitter. It could be a dog walker. And very, very often it is the owner. The owners have to be able to handle their dog if their dog is in pain. So how do we work on that? Well, I want you to circle back to something that comes up a lot on this show, and that's the 3 C's. Helping dogs be calm, comfortable, and cooperative. And the reason for that is because it also builds trust. Now, when we watch for signs of discomfort and try to help that dog feel comfortable, we are teaching them that they can use subtle signals with us, that we will listen, that we're paying attention, that we're trying to help. So when dogs are used to having people listen, pay attention, and try to help, we're setting them up to trust us in the future. So in the future, if something is sore, there is no reason for them to go over the top to try to frighten the human to get them to back off. Which, by the way, in case you did not know this, a lot of aggression is simply fear. Aggression is a display to get people to leave you alone, to go away. It's to push people away from you. And so it's not necessarily that a dog has decided, I would like very much to hurt you today. They're saying, I will hurt you if you continue coming at me. But when we teach them that we want them to be calm, comfortable, and cooperative, that we're listening, we pay attention, we care about their needs, they don't usually jump to that aggressive burst simply because they're in pain. And I know I'm saying that through my own experience, but that's my own experience with this, is that when they trust me, they will give me a subtle sign because I'm watching for it. I don't just crank down harder. I don't just readjust my grip. I automatically start thinking, are you uncomfortable? And because of that, when there's something painful, dogs will indicate, hey, I am uncomfortable. So that's part of why it's important to keep the 3 C's in mind. I want you to think that every single dog out there is always going to have, at some point in their life, every single dog is going to have some sort of pain issue at some point. Maybe it's one ear infection in that dog's whole entire life. Maybe it's something that happens all the time. Maybe it's just as they get older and they start getting a little bit of arthritis. But at some point, they will have an issue. It's going to happen. And the dogs that we are helping be calm, comfortable, and cooperative will be better for that. They will handle it better when we have to work on them when they have some pain. So that's part of why it's important to have the 3 C's in mind with all of the dogs. Every single dog. It's not about the dogs that give you a hard time. It's about all of them. Every single one. Even if you can get the job done, it's important for them to be calm, comfortable, and cooperative. And it's never too soon to build trust, and it's never too late to build trust. This should be something we're working on with all of the dogs. And while pain is not a free pass to hurt people, I do think that panic is the wild card here. I think that when dogs panic, they are out of control and they do not understand what they're doing at that point. That would be the only acceptable time to me for a dog to be maybe hurting a person, is when they have just totally lost control in a blind panic because of pain. And that can happen. People can do that too. I know people who've been emergency room nurses, and People lash out when they're in pain, when they're panicking, and it's not rational. It's not thought out. So we do have to take some precautions when dogs are experiencing pain, but we can also build this trust that helps them understand that we are a safe zone and we are here to help them. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Now I want to give you some examples of when a dog or a cat, in this case I'm going to give you some cat examples, was sore or uncomfortable or in pain and was still able to function and listen to people and allow humans to help them. Now, I'm going to start off with one of my cats. Years ago, my kitty had skin allergies. My kitties have since passed away of very old age. I no longer have kitties, but this kitty had skin allergies every spring and every fall. And I had a friend staying over with us who was holding my kitty in his arms, and he's petting him, and he's going, "Oh, look at his funny face. He's making funny faces." This friend of mine, honest to God, had no idea that that was pain. My cat wasn't making funny faces. He was doing that pain grimace that, "Oh, stop it." And I had to bring it to his attention that this was not a funny face. And my friend felt so bad, but he honestly thought that if an animal was in pain, they wouldn't just show you with a face, they would bite or scratch. In his mind, that was the only way that an animal would respond if they were in pain. I'm like, no, actually, he's really polite about pain. He's going to be good for you. He's not going to just attack you because he is in pain. But yeah, that was painful. So think about that. Are we noticing signs? Because if we do notice them, then we can back off, and that helps build trust. But if we don't know what to look for, sometimes owners don't know what to look for. They've actually been causing pain. Think about times when owners are petting a dog on the head and they're like, "Oh, I love him," and they're roughing up the dog's ears when the dog has a freaking ear infection. It sounds so obvious, but owners don't necessarily know. So when we're trying to build trust, sometimes they don't trust their owners as much as they trust us because we're watching for signs of pain, and owners don't necessarily do that. Now, I'm going to give you another example from my own life. I had a female border collie years ago that when she was 14, she fell, and she came up not putting any weight on her right back leg. And she was really good while I looked her over. Like, "Hey, can I see what you did?" I'm looking at her toenails. I'm looking at her paw, going all the way up her leg, feeling on her hip. I'm not feeling anything unusual. I'm not seeing exactly where her pain is. She's not yelping or anything. And I brought her to the vet, and the vet's manipulating that leg and that joint, and x-rays showed that the bone had broken. So it wasn't until we saw an x-ray, which it's still kind of hard to talk about, but it was bone cancer had eaten away at her leg. But she was very, very patient and polite. Like, these are people who are trying to help me. She didn't try to attack us. She didn't try to launch at us. She wasn't scared. She just kind of went, "Okay, well, this is what it is. It is what it is." And you know what? I think that the more we see examples like that, the more we realize that we can teach animals to trust us. That when you are sore, let me take a look. Now, the reason why is because if she did let out a yelp, she knows I would back off. She doesn't need to do anything more than that. And with our veterinarian too. If we push it just a little bit too far and she says that she's uncomfortable, we're going to back off. It's very, very clear in my pets' minds that this is the way humans behave around animals. Now, I'm going to give you another example. And this one is an example of a dog that I used to work with. I started grooming him because he was really aggressive about his feet with other groomers. That was what I had heard. My first time grooming him, yeah, okay. He was definitely not comfortable with having his feet done, and I taught him to trust me. But you would think that, well, he used to be bad, so if something happens, he's going to be bad again. But I nicked a pad. I know. Every once in a while, it's our fault. Totally my fault. I nicked a pad. And you know what? He didn't get upset. He didn't become aggressive. He didn't yelp. And when I had to do first aid on that nicked pad, now we're applying pressure because it's bleeding and taking care of that pad, he was fine. He was really good. And I'm sure that it hurt. Of course it hurt. And it was totally my fault. And when he went to the vet, he was pretty good for them too. Not the same level of trust that he has with me. And part of that is because we spend time building trust. We spend time. It's an investment. This dog had figured out Chrissy is going to listen and pay attention when I say I am uncomfortable with something. And then from there, they become more and more comfortable with things that maybe they weren't comfortable with before. Now, here is another example. I work with a little dog currently who has back problems, and she has had a back surgery. And I've been working with her, oh gosh, I'd say about a year now. And the last grooming that I did, I went over to go get her. I had already set up my table, and I was like, all right, come on, it's time. And she went running around, and I'm like, oh, are we going to play keep away? What's going on here? That's my first thought, like, oh gosh, No, she ran out of the room to run over to my table. This is a little dog who was having some real behavior issues around, I don't want to be touched, I'm nervous about my back, who when I went over to pick her up, ran over to my table to wait for me to put her on the table. We can still teach these dogs to trust us. That dog has some sort of constant soreness going on, and she still trusts me. She went over to the table, which, by the way, working behavior cases, when they start to trust you, it's like, oh, so cute. I love when they do stuff like that. Here she is waiting at my table, like, come on, Chrissy, I'm waiting. So it's not the end of the world if a dog has some sort of pain. We still need to be able to groom them. We still need to be able to take care of their toes. And we can make some modifications. And we should be thinking about their comfort. Calm, comfortable, and cooperative, and helping to build their trust. And sometimes we're going to have to build up again. For example, the dog who had had back surgery, from what I understand, was always really good for grooming before her back injury. And so she just needed to learn again that, hey, this is okay. This is your new reality. And here's how life works now. And so we can get our dogs to understand that this is going to be safe. This is going to be okay. And even though this is a podcast about dogs, we can do that for our cats too. We can do that for horses. We can do that for lots of animals. Because if we spend the time helping them understand that they can trust us, that we're not doing painful things to be mean, we're just doing things that might be painful. So lots of examples out there that I think many of us can relate to. But here's another one is just the dog that gets scared during grooming. They might be experiencing some sort of pain. We need to think about that. Maybe if we just hold them differently. An example, I often will have somebody else hold a dog, just to cradle them in their arms so that I can trim around their feet. So I can trim their toenails with their legs dangling. The dogs that have like weird twisted legs and stuff, or dogs that have problems balancing. Why not? Have someone hold them, balance, so that they don't have to balance on their leg. Have someone hold them and just trim their nails in whatever anatomical position they're most comfortable in. And for a lot of dogs, ta-da, now suddenly they're fine. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the discomfort about the nail trimming wasn't about the toenail, it was about the positioning of their body and that they have some soreness. So be thinking about the ways that we can avoid pain, because certainly we want our dogs to not be in pain, but that being in pain isn't a free pass to hurt people. Now panic is different because a dog loses control when they panic. They aren't thinking. They're just scared and they're lashing out any which way, and that's the fight, flight, or freeze. And sometimes we mistake freeze for a dog who's being good. That's not calm, that's frozen in fear. And if we keep coming at them, they're going to ramp it up to flight or fight. And in a grooming setting, there's nowhere to flee to. We've blocked that. So a dog that's frozen in fear could jump right to showing teeth, air snapping, trying to get us to go away. And that's what aggression is for. Aggression is to make other beings leave you alone. So pain is not a free pass. Panic is different. I don't want to say it's a free pass because we also need to be able to handle animals when they're in pain. That's just part of life. At some point, an animal is going to experience some pain, and it's usually an owner, but it could be the groomer, pet sitter, dog walker, someone else who has to deal with that and help that animal feel okay and help that animal get to the veterinarian for medical attention. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.
If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.